Well, good morning. It's the Facilities and Infrastructure Committee for January 19th, 2023. We have quorum. We also have some other legislators who are joining us who will be joining the committee next time. Are there any changes to the agenda this morning?
I have one.
Who's I?
This is Jeff from Highway.
Good morning, Jeff.
Good morning. I was just looking at the agenda and I noticed that there's although I'm sure I would be okay with it, I'm sure Roxanne doesn't want to explain one of our resolutions. It's on the agenda under airport. It's the resolution D.
Oh, from the highway machinery budget. Well,
yeah.
Roxanne's very good at explaining things, so. All right, we'll move that up to your report. Thanks for telling us about that.
Thanks.
Do we have public comment this morning? We might have someone join. Oh, there's Susan. Susan, did you want to speak on public comment?
I did, Mike, yeah, and sorry I'm not in the room.
No, that's all right. Susan Holland from Historic Ithaca.
Thanks, Mike, appreciate it. Good morning to all and nice to see you again. We're most appreciative of the opportunity at last month's meeting, December's meeting, to present our thoughts and opportunities for the reuse of 408 North Tioga Street. For the record, I'm Susan Holland, the Executive Director at Historic Ithaca, and we've been in the preservation business for 57 years. I see on today's agenda that the Red House is back up for discussion, and I'd like to offer some thoughts. While we've been asked to contribute to a new seeker, we're curious about why the current seeker is not relevant, which allows for the sale of the building. We appreciate that the Sears Street buildings or Sears Street property, were sold to Ithaca NHS and look forward to that project coming to fruition, and very much thank you for that. Similarly, we'd be in the support of 408 North Tioga being sold to a new owner. This approach makes sense for the following reasons. Economically, the county purchased the property. The assessment rolls show it at $300,000. If it could be sold for that amount or more, seeing a really strong real estate market here, the county would then have a property back on the tax rolls, and improving the property for either a residence or a commercial space would do that. Housing, we're all aware of a great housing crisis and shortage of housing in our community. We see new units being built, both affordable and market rate, and still we know it's not enough. It's a great opportunity for a new owner to restore it to a single family or multifamily property. And a few parking spots could even be included. Environmentally, I can't emphasize this enough. Tompkins County, New York State, and the city of Ithaca all have made great strides in sustainability and have policies in place for a just green community. By 2030, that's only 7 years away, we have to abide by and consider every action that affects the environment and the climate crisis. Reusing buildings in their place is really high very, very high on that list of a sustainable community for numerous reasons. The county has a comprehensive plan which is included in that, and that's a great juxtaposition to this property. Historically, 408 North Tioga is in a local historic district. New York State leads the nation in historic tax credits for both commercial and homeowner properties. 408 is a prime candidate for those credits. We also believe that taking the property down would put our neighborhoods and downtown core at a great disadvantage. Celebrating our distinct and historic past is important to what we show to the outside world and to ourselves. Tourism, the quality of our neighborhoods throughout Tompkins County, sustainability, transportation benefits, walkability, and employing the local workforce are all benefits of preservation. We need to continue to embrace those attributes and adapt our buildings. I want to again offer help from Historic Ithaca and myself in all those endeavors. We've worked successfully with multiple property owners throughout the county. We're extending those same services to you at the county and look forward to working with you to have this property saved. I thank you for your support and for your time for allowing us to comment today. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Are there others that would like to speak on privilege of the floor? I guess not. Okay, then we'll move on. For the chair's report, I don't have a formal report this morning. Let's go to County Administrator.
you, Mike.
Morning, Lisa.
Good morning. I shared a lot of updates at the legislature meeting on Tuesday. The only thing that I would add that since the last meeting, and it's under the F&I committee, TCAT, the underwriters are set to approve a budget increase for TCAT at 5%. Well, the underwriters have approved that, and TCAT's board will be voting on that to pass their 2023 budget in the next couple of weeks. So we had originally budgeted an 8% increase for TCAT. We will have to do a budget adjustment once that number is finalized. And that's the only thing I wanted to update the committee on.
Randy.
Was the sole reason that they want to reduce the contribution to 5% because they want TCAT to use their fund balance? Is that what their explanation is? Or?
That was a part of the discussions, and TCAT is going to need to rework its budget with the new increases and adjust accordingly to see where things stand.
Well, yeah, I guess I've got questions about that. As I understood it in the past, when we went through budget, we had, and the city had approved an 8% increase. At that time, I believe Cornell said it didn't want any increase. And then Cornell came back and said, correct me if I'm wrong, said, well, we would do a 5% increase. Well, why are we letting that be the deciding factor here?
So TCAT urged the underwriters to accept the 5% increase because they need to pass their budget and move things forward programmatically and know what numbers they're working with. So that was the reason given.
Deborah.
Yeah, it's my understanding that the TCAT underwriting funding operates very similarly to the funding for TC3, which means that unless everybody agrees to a number, nobody can contribute anything. So,
Yeah, I understand how it works, but I just guess I'm not happy with Cornell's position here.
Speaking for myself, I'm not happy with it either, but that's what we're stuck with. And TCAT should have had a budget approved by the end of December, and it was held up because of Cornell's reluctance to ante up.
Well, I should let this go, but I just want to say one more thing, and that is, in December, they were at 0.
Well, no, in all fairness, they had not indicated what they were willing to give. You know, they had never taken a position of we're not going to increase anything. They just took the position that they weren't going to increase 8% because they didn't feel it was justified. And it was largely, I think, because they were not happy with TCAT sitting on any kind of cushion.
Okay. Thank you for the responses there. Go ahead.
That's all I had, Mike. Thank you.
You've got a resolution.
Oh.
2-year lease renewal, Tompkins County Assigned Council space. Amanda's moving that. I need a second. It's seconded by Randy. You want to speak to that?
Yes, it's fairly routine that their lease expired at the end of 2022, and we have, I believe it's a 2-year. We're looking to pass a 2-year lease agreement in the same space.
Questions? Should point out we now have a full committee. Ann has joined us, plus their 2 prospective members, Deborah and Greg. Ready to vote? Those in favor? Those opposed? That's unanimous. Well, Jeff, you're up now.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Mike.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm in our last day of our New York State Highway Superintendents Association Conference in Saratoga. So other than that, I would be probably present in the room. I have 4 resolutions and some other items to discuss along with our quarterly report.
Are you for your conference, are you time sensitive here or?
I am not. I have all the time we need.
Okay.
But I did step out of our association business meeting to come to do this, but they understand this is important, and I'm certainly not crunched for time. And
Okay.
after I get done here, I'll go back to that meeting.
I thought I would ask.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Go ahead.
We could do the resolution D that was under airport first, and then I could go on with the rest of the stuff that's under highway as a suggestion.
And somebody want to move resolution budget adjustment transfer from highway machinery fund balance to automotive fuel? Leah's moved that. Amanda has seconded it. Fuel's getting expensive, isn't it?
Yeah, and this is an unfortunate thing, and I never like to do this, but it's necessary. And it was, we had forecasted our budget and our quantity of fuel that we had in our tanks, and we went through it a little quicker than we thought. And just before Christmas, we had to make the decision to order what our minimum allowance is. It's just $6,000, 6,000 gallons. I did let administration know at the time, and then I suggested that this would be a way to correct the shortfall, which would be, in the end of the 22 year. This did put us under, or over budget, I should say. Some of the decisions that go into that at the end of the year is the delivery time and the minimum amount by the contract that we exercise. So we really probably didn't need 6,000 gallons to get to the end of the year. We probably may have not even needed it at all, but I'd much rather be explaining the resolution this way than explaining that we ran out of fuel during a storm. So that's what this is about. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. So, and sorry, I wish I would have included this before, but this money is coming from the DM reserve, which is created by monies that left over at the end of the year in fuel and other items that are within our machinery budget. And then, so if we really don't, at the time, we're learning things every day as we're closing down 22 budget, and we really didn't need the 65, and now we know we didn't. We really only need about the 45, but the extra money will just go back where we're transferring it from because it's extra. If everybody got that, it's really just to cover those fuel purchase prices as it turned out. Thank you.
Are we ready to vote? Ann?
I'm not seeing this resolution. Was this?
It's down under airport. You weren't here when we had to, it was put on the
okay.
agenda in the wrong place.
Oh, okay.
So it's resolution D on the agenda,
All right. Thank you.
under airport.
Yeah. Yes, I'm ready.
Okay. All right, those in favor? That's unanimous.
Thank you. Back to the highway side. First on the agenda is the quarterly highway capital status report. I could go through that for everyone quickly.
Yeah, why don't we do that?
Okay. Flipping through, I'm on packet page 6, Etna Lane. As I've said before, and I understand there's some new committee members, this is a quarterly status report the highway puts out, and anything in red that's on this report is different from the last quarterly status report. So it's much easier to go through it and see anything that's changed in the last 3 months. So here we are, Etna Lane. construction's complete November 1st. Project was complete and on budget. There's a couple photographs there. Please stop me if you have any questions.
And there was a nice ribbon cutting ceremony.
Yeah, there was a ribbon cutting ceremony. A lot of community members were present. It really came together. I think Robert Henry and Dominic helped out setting that up, and it was nice to have that. East Hill intersection safety, that is now complete. It is called East Hill intersection safety. It did come under several different names. It was an HSIP project funded through the TIP. The one crossing that was completed is at the kind of near the Burger King Ithaca walk path that parallels along Pine Tree Road and then crosses over. There's some rapid flashing beacons there now and some new striping.
Is that the former Burger King?
Yeah, I believe that. I did hear that. The Burger King is not open now. Yeah, that's unfortunate. If you like Burger King, I like their shakes. They're good there on a hot summer day sometimes. Station Road, not a lot of red here, but I am happy to report there's been a lot of emails back and forth with staff and DEC and getting the finer details, and we're scheduling this for as soon as the permit will determine our start date as far as working in the stream. And once we get that, we've been talking with our materials and services annual contract. In our services bid, we have a section where we award work like this to a contractor. We've been talking to that contractor. The contractor is Silverline. It's a smaller, dollar value projects. And we've already in years past purchased the design boxes, and we have that to go in there, precast design concrete boxes to go in both locations. So the permit, once we get that, this will be, hopefully we're hoping for an early start in 23.
Is that a trout stream?
It's upstream. It is dry most of the year, but
It's intermittent then.
it's intermittent, and it's not far from a classified stream. And if you recall, this was a site of a pretty bad flooding event that the stream upstream it caused damage to the state bridge. And then when it came down the stream, it jumped the riverbank and went through some homes. And so some of this was a DEC water quality grant, and a lot of it is involving some stream work, and a lot of that is to build a better channel because it's still pretty flat and could be susceptible to a similar event. And hopefully after we're done, the boxes will be able to handle much more water, but also stay clean. And then if they do fill up with gravel, it will be much easier to maintain them from our end of things. Next is Podunk Road. It's in preliminary design. That is a Bridge New York project. Next page.
Just one question.
Yeah.
Jeff, and you might have said this before, is that the town or the county that will be taking the lead on this?
It's a county road and it's a county bridge, and it'll be the county taking the lead on that project.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep, we applied. We were the sponsors on the application. Bostwick Road, our facility improvements have been moving along. Our garage areas are great. The concrete is all done. We have the in-floor heating with some of the cooler days. It's been working really well. It's a little too warm. We're working on that in one of the bays. We're delaying our parking lot overlay because the geothermal wells are going to be wreaking havoc with the employee parking lot. There's, I think Arel said, about 80 wells that'll be going in, so that'll get tore up. But there's money in that budget to fix it after, so that's good news. I have some news on the Bridge New York culvert projects. They were let out to bid. The bid opening was December 1st. Was able to talk with the state about the bid results. They were high. If you recall, there were originally 6 culverts. We removed one because of the long delay. It was really holding all the other 5 from going to bid. We bid 5. The bids came in relatively high. If you recall, it originally was estimated, this is 4 or 5 years old now, at about a $3 million for all 6. They were asking this, anything over that was our responsibility, and we were at the 1.7 million mark that we had allocated to cover the balance under the engineering estimates as the design moved forward in other parts of the project. At the bid opening, it was high again, and the state came to us and was going to need another $300,000 for awarding of the 5 culverts. I had already stated to the state, they knew very well our position, that I was not willing to look for additional funding to move these projects forward. So they were able to, the low bidder is Economy, they were able to go back to the low bidder, and it's now down to 4 culverts, and it's going to save us and this isn't a sure number, but instead of the 1.7, it's going to be about 1.4, 1.5 that we are required. So it would have been another $500,000 or $600,000 for this one culvert. We will, like the 6th culvert that was earlier taken out, and this 5th one, this one is on Conlin Road. We will get the design. We have that, it was under the project. We will get the design, and we'll be able to do them in-house. We'll probably do them, inspect them ourselves, and in a long story short, I'm very confident in saying that we'll be able to do that for less than what we're saving by pulling back and not including this in the bid. It's not on the schedule yet. That's all, we'll have to look at it and work that into what year, as we move forward, when that's going to happen. But so the good news is, I haven't heard confirmation of all this, but the 4 culverts are moving towards award, and it should be begun in 23, probably completing in 24. So I wanted to let the committee know about that. And that information, the ones that we pulled and earlier and things, is all on here.
What about the new round of Bridge New York? Have we got proposals in there?
Yep, I was gonna let everyone know that, but we last Friday, the culvert applications were due, and we submitted 2 culvert applications. The bridge application process is due tomorrow. We are submitting 2 bridges, and the town of Ithaca is submitting 1 county bridge. Those are, the one's Doug Road is the one we're submitting, and there's a rehab on the older Forest Home Road Bridge. The town of Ithaca, we met with them, we described the process, and they actually wanted to submit the application on their own. And I also am aware that the city of Ithaca is submitting a bridge application. And this round of Bridge New York is a little bit different, in that they've allocated to MPOs and counties a known dollar amount, and it's spread pretty evenly across the state. We've been very successful, so it kind of hurt us because it's not necessarily as high as we've gotten in the past, but it is a good number. And from what I know at this time, it's something that at least under our MPO is going to be able to capture. We have competition with the city, obviously, viability of projects, but and then the money it's around $4.5 million that's being allocated under Bridge New York for bridge construction. And everybody knows that's like one big bridge. That's a couple small bridges or partials. So we're not sure how that's all going to shake out. We did meet with the city and the town. Like I said, the town earlier, we all met together. We kind of discussed things. That money is split $3 million to off federal aid system bridges, and 1.5 approximately numbers now to on system bridges. You can use, as I'm told, you can use on system bridges you can move the on system bridges to off system bridges. Myself, I feel very important. Bridge New York money is having the flexibility to be able to put towards off system bridges would be a priority for me. So that's going to weigh out. There's a committee, Fernando, some DOT. We have a person from our staff on the committee to evaluate the applications and see how we can divide the money up. Like I said, they're due tomorrow, and we'll be, as we know more, I will keep the committee updated. It's good that we're getting some money. I feel we've been so fortunate in the past rounds of Bridge New York. You know, we've always gotten above $4.5 million between the city, the towns getting culverts, the town bridges, and that sort of thing. You know, all collectively, we've always done very well. So that's the Bridge New York thing. Thanks, Mike, I got the update.
Well, thanks
for any questions with that.
That thorough explanation.
Yeah, thank you. Moving right along, we have some kind of stuff that we did in 23. We did the Fall Creek Road. Those are agreements. That's a project coming up. That's actually there's 3 resolutions on the bridge. That's new, and I'll get to that later in my discussion. Our Cortlandt Street project in the village of Groton, we're looking for advanced preliminary concept plans, working with B&L as a consultant on that. What I thought this was about when I first looked at the page, but it's Coddington Road at German Cross. I think it was discussed last committee meeting that there was some positive feedback on it. We did some sightline work at that intersection. We replaced a large culvert pipe, and it was mostly done by our crews, and it came out really well. It's a nice section of road. It's similar to what was done at the Burns Road intersection, where there was a dip and kind of a poor sight lines at the intersection. As everyone, I think, is aware, Game Farm Road, we also in the fall were able to remove that dip, and there's a couple photographs there. Have not heard recent updates from the town of Ithaca or the town of Dryden as to the schedule of opening the crossing, but I know they said they were planning end of January, but I'm not sure on that.
At the last town board meeting, town of Dryden, Jeff, Dan Lamb was suggesting it'd be the end of March.
Okay.
They had to order this equipment for the crossing lights.
Yeah. Okay, I know there's some elevated lighting, area lighting, and then there's a couple flashing lights on each end of the crossing. All right. So that's that. I have a couple of, I think, in order on the agenda. There's some capital payment summary report. If there's any questions on that, that is in regards to the Etna Lane Bridge and some payments to economy. Kind of closing out that project. Getting to the 3 resolutions. We have, if I can kind of explain them first, and then I'll let you folks decide on how exactly you want to consider passing them. But this is a brand new project. It's as you just driving along Fall Creek Road out of Freeville. It's just like this, the first curve. If you're heading north, it's the curve to the left. There's a triple concrete box in there, concrete box culvert. It's been on the tip for many years. It's been kind of getting moved around, and then originally it was only funded for design, and now it's funded for the whole thing. But the out years, it's in 2026 construction. So the federal fiscal year starts end of 22. I didn't see the reasoning necessarily to fund our earlier phases, which is our design and right-of-way phases and things like that, through a bond process, because we'd be holding on. Usually we do a ban, and we'd be holding on to that ban all the way out into 2026, or we'd be working with changing the quantity and things like that. And our fund balance in the capital is quite high. It's in the millions. So I feel like this is what's accomplishing in a good way what I was just describing by funding some of the earlier phases. So what we have here are 3 resolutions, and they're all connected. It's all Fall Creek Road. The one, and they're a little bit out of order, the third one, which is resolution C on the agenda, is really the first one that needs to happen, because that's moving the money. That's moving the money from where it is in our reserve out to put it in the capital account for Fall Creek Road. So we would be doing that. And I've done this format earlier in some other projects you may recall, where we kind of stack 3 resolutions. If you try and put all this information into one resolution, it gets really long. And I think doing it this way seems to make it, at least I can explain it easier. And so the other one is the agreement, the SLA, the state local agreement with New York State DOT, that as we pass this agreement and there's some language that there'll be an agreement that Lisa will sign or whomever she appoints, that will put the money available for reimbursement at the state and as it is on the tip. And then the third one is hiring the consultant that we've selected through our, as we've done in the past, our statewide LDSA local design services agreement through the federal aid program. We're able to pre-select a group of consultants. And then when we get project for project, we ask for like one letter submittals and we look at their past work and how they've done. And it's very easy to select because they're all really good consultants. This one, we're looking to select Labella to do this project. That's my primer. So Mike, I'd leave it up to you, how you'd want to.
So you want to start with which resolution?
It makes sense because we're for the money to be there. The other two really can't happen. It's more easier to explain that way than anything. Doesn't really matter, but.
So you want to start with E?
I would start with E, yeah.
All right. I'm sorry? Yes. All right, someone want to move that resolution? Lee, seconded by Ann. You've heard the explanation. Are there questions? Randy.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. I see that all these projects are reimbursed 80% from the federal side. Is the full 20% all county expense, the remaining amount?
Yeah, it'll be a local share of 20%. There are some projects as they get to construction that the state will allocate some Marchicelli funds to help out with, but that's not, we don't know that yet. So if that happens, we'll have to adjust our numbers. And usually the Marchicelli will pay the 15%, which reduces us to 5%. That is in the past why quite often you've heard of the 80-15-5 breakdown of percentage or a 5% local share. Federal aid has always been 80-20. If they introduce the Marchicelli aid, then that's generally a 15% cost share.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thanks.
Ready to vote on this? Those in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Let's go to Resolution C then. Approve a funding agreement with New York State Department of Transportation for Fall Creek Road Bridge over Fall Creek Rehabilitation Project. It's in the town of Dryden. Someone want to move that one? Amanda? Second by Ann. Other questions or discussion? Those in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Resolution D, approved design service contract with Labella Associates for Fall Creek Road Bridge over Fall Creek Rehabilitation Project. This is also in the town of Dryden, hasn't moved. Someone want to move that one? Randy, seconded by Ann. Any discussion about this? Got to thinking, Jeff, is this culvert in that area that State DOT improved for their detour when they were doing their bridge?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. That was part of the detour. It was included in the Freeville Bridge State DOT detour. They used Peruville and Fall Creek coming back down to.
Because I know they did quite a lot of guide rail and stuff like that.
They did a lot of stuff for us, yeah. Which doesn't always happen, but it's nice to get it when it does.
Right, ready to vote? All in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous.
Great. Thank you.
I just mentioned also at that town board meeting for Dryden I was at, they were talking about Freeze Road Bridge. Two comments that were made were the folks down there on Freeze Road sort of like having the bridge out because now they're on a cul-de-sac. And the other thing was, Dan Lamb said that they're now aiming for completion of that bridge in 2025. And Koreman.
Thanks. Jeff, please extend our thanks to, I think it was 8 folks you had that came out of the Highway Department that went to Buffalo for that extreme
Oh,
storm.
yes.
So please thank them for us. I heard they were working 12-hour shifts, and I can't even imagine what the conditions were like. So thank them.
You know, they did a great job. I think anytime, you know, the call is made, we have more than 8 people willing to go and do something like that. That time of year, I think, made it a little bit worse, right between Christmas and New Year's. I was really glad that they were able to come back for New Year's. I appreciate that, Ann. I'll pass it on. And thanks to Lisa and Shauna for talking about it. I've passed that information on to staff, and it's all of our staff. We all really, you know, we had to be prepared on site here in the county in case something happened too. It was a I don't want to say they had a good time, but they learn a great deal. My deputy Nick Ensign was able to go with them. He had been really involved in a kind of a natural disaster. He's kind of new to the public works side of things. It's good if you never get involved in them, but getting to see the operations room and the mapping and going into an area that you don't know, I think it was a really good learning experience for all of them. So thank you, Ann.
We appreciated the photos, too, of their being in Buffalo. It was very close to that giant mountain of snow that had been moved.
Yeah, that'll be there till July.
Did everybody see those? I can't remember who sent them to us, whether it was Lisa or whether it was you, Jeff, but.
Yeah, I was sharing some with different people. Well, I think I was sending stuff to Lisa and Dominic, so, yeah.
If you didn't get them, we can certainly, Lisa could probably resend them for you.
Just going back, Mike, will the cul-de-sac be there till 2025? Is that?
Oh, yeah. We had to close the bridge. We didn't have any choice. Isn't that right, Jeff?
Yeah, the posting had dwindled down, through state inspections, the posting had dwindled down to, I think it was last 5 tons, and then the state went and inspected again, and the amount of work that would be required to even keep it opening at a low posting, it just didn't make sense. You're kind of band-aiding, and you're just looking for them to find something else, so you'd be under it. The bridge has lasted its useful life, and it's from an engineering and a safety carrying load standard, level. It just doesn't serve a purpose anymore.
Anything else for Jeff?
Mike?
Deborah?
Yeah, I understand why the residents might be absolutely thrilled to live in secluded splendor, but isn't that road a way to get around? I mean, what about emergency vehicles? 2 years of being closed seems to me concerning.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Okay. People need to be careful what they wish for.
It's not just 2 years. I mean, it's been closed since end of 2021.
I forgot exactly when.
It was December. It's been closed all of 22. It was closed in December of 21, if my memory serves correctly. Yeah, so it's just over a year now.
Next thing we know, they're going to want to secede. But okay.
All right, let's move on to our airport.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jeff. Good morning, Roxanne.
Good morning. I just have a few little updates. If you want me to start off with those, I can. So probably a week and a half ago, there was an issue with the Federal Aviation System, the NOTAM system. You probably saw that. Domestic flights were grounded. Ithaca was affected. Their second flight, the first flight got out to JFK fine. It happened before the grounding happened. The second flight on United to Newark was delayed, but was able to get out. So we experienced that. They're, looking at the system, they didn't believe it was anything that, triggered it from a cyber attack. But then you hear, all kinds of different information. I'm, still just making sure that we're up to date. Our NOTAMs that were in the system, our staff re-entered them after it went back online. So everything was up to date there through the FAA. Then on Sunday, we had an issue with a United flight, again, coming into Ithaca. They are operated by GoJets, is the regional carrier, and there was an issue with a new policy that GoJets had put into place. So Ithaca is a winter operation airport. It's kind of how it's coded in some of the systems. And the policy was indicating that they needed these codes. So they're runway codes that our guys enter into the system. But if there's no contaminants or less than 30% of the contaminants, it doesn't issue a code. It's per the FAA advisory circular. GoJets had put a policy in where they needed a code. So that was why the flight was diverted. Our staff reached out to Josh. He spoke with GoJet's dispatch, and nothing when Ithaca was fine. Ithaca was safe. We were open. We were operational. Our runway was basically clear. Spoke to dispatch, spoke to somebody above in United as well. They're working on changing the policy. It was just something put into place without realizing and coordinating on how the FAA operates. So they're working through that, but they've been coming in. Everything's fine. Everything's good. It was nothing related to Ithaca, how things had to divert, but passengers were bussed down from Syracuse to Ithaca. But yeah, it was handled. Josh was able to work that on Sunday. Thankful for him. A few hours, and of course during the Buffalo Bills game, which he's a huge Buffalo fan, but kudos to him for getting that taken care of. We have our applications out for a job description out for a marketing person that we're looking at doing.
Excuse me.
We have got 9 people have already applied.
Roxanne, we have a question. May we interrupt you, please?
Yep.
Sorry about that. Just when are these codes issued or established? After the flights are in the air?
Nope. So these codes, so what happens is our staff, as they're clearing the runway, so they file NOTAMs here. And if there's no change to conditions, there's nothing updated. They don't, but if the conditions change, they update the NOTAMs hourly. Josh is in another meeting. I was going to have him join us this morning, but he's already in another meeting, and he can probably get even into more detail. So this is information. So the codes, so what happens if it's less than 30% contaminants on the runway? No codes are issued. If there is over 30%, there's like a 555, 444. So they were looking for a 555. We were above that, better than that, so we didn't have a code, so we didn't have any conditions, but because of what their policy stated, what the dispatcher was reading, and as it's happening, he was like, oh, he sent to the pilot, no, you can't land, because there's no, so he's thinking it's worse when it was actually better than the 555. So that's how it's handled here. So we enter the codes, and hopefully, and this was something that changed through the FAA. It used to be done by breaking action more. This was changed probably 5 or 6 years ago, or maybe a little bit more, 7 years ago. They updated their system on how things are reported.
Okay, that gives me a better understanding. I wasn't quite following the whole progression there. But,
Absolutely, yeah. So sorry about that. So everything was fine here, and it was just kind of a crazy fluke that the policy had changed, and it wasn't anything from Ithaca, but hopefully they get that squared away, and the dispatcher understands that, and he could have been a new dispatcher, I'm not sure, but when they read the policy, they said, no, we need a code, and err on the side of caution, I think he was, but it wasn't, there was nothing happening here, so.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yep. And then we have, so we're looking for the marketing person. I think we have 9 applicants already. The position is posted through the Sunday, January 30th. So if anybody knows of anything or anybody, have them get online and apply. We're looking for a very dynamic, outgoing person to work the marketing for the airport. One other thing, TSA is looking to hire screening agents. So they're going to have a little job fair here at the terminal on Friday. the 20th, and then next week on the 24th and the 31st, the following week, I believe, 30th or 31st, from 10 a.m. until noon. So anybody looking for a job, I have information. I sent the press release out so to Dominic and to Brandman. So hopefully that should be getting out to the public for job openings in Ithaca. And that's my update.
Questions for Roxanne?
Just from a marketing and updates standpoint, how's the reception with the New York City contract or use of Kennedy?
Yep. So that's they're ramping up. So when this, when it started, of course, students are on break. January 9th was the startup date, and most times people had them booked. So the first flight wasn't. I think they were at like 30 some passengers. I haven't got the update from this week, but they've been increasing to 40 to 50, plus passengers, fluctuating. So continuing to get that information out there. I actually just thought of that with thinking of Delta. I had a meeting yesterday with Delta and United, and we were discussing getting a contract in place with the airlines. We currently are operating without contracts with our two airlines, which is kind of a normal thing. It happens. We'd started them pre-pandemic, so we're working on those now. Hopefully we should have something in place soon that I'll bring to the ledge, to F&I and to the ledge for approval. Looking for a 3-year contract with 2-year extension is what we're hoping for.
Roxanne, what's the capacity of the planes going to JFK?
JFK 76.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Greg?
Hi, Roxanne, it's Greg. Just anecdotally, have you seen any change in pricing? I know personally when I looked recently, I was pleased to see that Ithaca was competitive with Syracuse on that JFK flight, which was great to see. Have you seen that, or is that backed up by data in any way?
It's hard with data for that because it's really when people, I could go online right now and get a price, $238, and then 2 hours later it could be $412, and then the pricing for airline, how they structure their pricing amazes me. I don't think there's any rhyme or reason to it. But I've had a lot of people, so I've taken some phone calls here, and I'll get online really quick and check, flight status or flight information for individuals. And I've really been finding some great prices. I've had people call me and say, it may be sometimes even cheaper than Syracuse, or well within $100. And people are like, absolutely, I'm not driving to Syracuse if I can fly out of Ithaca. The cost of my time, the drive up 81, the parking, multiple factors. So, and the early morning flight, people really love to get that flight. And if you can get out early, that really helps the rest of your day if you're traveling further. So,
Yeah, I think it's great news all around. So I was glad to see that the other day while I was looking.
good.
Shall we go over the resolutions then? Resolution A is the audit of final payment, Baseline King Corporation, primary wind cone, Ithaca Tompkins International Airport. Someone want to move that? Ann? Seconded by Lee. Discussion? We aren't talking a lot of money there.
Nope, that's, I think, just the release of the final retainage. Everything's done, approved, closed. And this project, it's just the retainage of $1,700. It was a small contract.
So we got a new cone?
We got a new wind cone, yep.
All right. What color is it? All right. Ready to vote? All in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Resolution B, audit of final payment, Seneca Stone Corporation, Rehabilitate Taxiway, a Phase 3 Taxiway D, and General Aviation Apron, Ithaca Tompkins International Airport. That's a mouthful.
It is.
Someone want to move that? Amanda, seconded by Ann. Discussion on this one.
I had a quick question.
Go ahead.
I think this is, you had talked about this before, Roxanne, that you were really happy with the work that they had done, right?
Yes, extremely happy. Seneca Stone, the project, I think we had like 45 days to complete the project, and it was done, I think, within 2 weeks. I mean, they were really good. 2 to 3 weeks. They come in, they do a great job. They work with us, we work with them. Anything, additional that, we need to deal with. And this project also was 100% funded because of the year. It was 100% federally funded because the federal government funded some of them during COVID. So this project's 100% funded by federal money. So this is just the final payment on that.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Ready to vote? Those in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Resolution order of payment, Streeter Associates, Inc., Phase 3, U.S. Customs Facility, Ithaca Tompkins International Airport. Someone want to move that one? Amanda, seconded by Randy. This is final payment? Roxanne, this is the final payment?
Correct. Yep. Final payment on this project. So I believe all of the grants and projects related to the Upstate Airport Initiative, I believe this is the last one. So all of the final payments should be through on that. I'll double check that, but I think all 3 phases have been completed, projects done and signed off.
Punch lists has all been done?
Yep.
Questions? Those in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Anything else, Roxanne?
Not that I can think of. I think I'm good.
Please express our thanks to Josh for the work you explained he did on that problem with that flight.
Will do. Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
Let's move to downtown facilities. Arel's here. I see his picture. Morning, Arel. Are you with us? I think you're still muted. Arel, are you hearing us? I don't know. That's it.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, my laptop wasn't working, and so I switched to my cell phone. I actually have a 1 o'clock meeting with ITS to replace my laptop, so just in the nick of time. No, so I apologize for not being able to get on the computer, but yes, I'm here.
All right, well, good. You're up. Would you like to report to us this morning?
Sure. I probably don't have a lot to report. Today is my first day back. I've been actually out of the state for 4 weeks. My mother was very ill just before Christmas, unfortunately with COVID, and she passed away December 27th. So I've been in California dealing with her affairs, and just got back about 2.5 days ago.
We were very
so
sorry
trying
to
catch up.
Arel, we were very sorry to hear that, and condolences to you and to all of your family.
Thank you very much. Reporting-wise, the Red House is still there. I did touch base with Alan earlier than week, and again this morning. The building, we have not seen any further deterioration of the Red House. We're continuing to maintain it through the winter, minimal heating, and having our staff walk through the building to make sure that we don't have any active leaks or any vandalism of the building. So as far as the Red House goes, that's going well. The deconstruction of the Baker Dental Building is taking much longer than we had expected. The contractor is just scheduling-wise is having difficulty to get started, but our hope is that between now and probably in the next 30 days, we'll be able to at least get permits approved and start the deconstruction process.
When you say permits approved, Arel, what permits are required?
This is permits for abatement of the building first, so that goes through the state. It's actually through the Labor Department, so we just have to get permits to allow us to start the abatement process, and there's testing required as part of that, so we just have to submit a permit application to the state to let them know that we are initiating abatement of a structure. So it's a typical thing that we do for any abatement project, but this one, since it includes the deconstruction of a building, it requires additional paperwork and application for variances.
Is that DEC or Health Department?
No, that's Department of Labor.
Oh, okay. I think you said that. My apologies. Yep. Well, do we want to get into talking about the downtown facilities issues? And I see Amanda smiling over there.
When do we not want to get into talking about downtown facilities?
I can't imagine. So we had at Ann's request, I think we have the timeline that we've just been adding to the agenda each time. I believe that's there, isn't it? And in any event, we did make some progress on the timeline.
Back at page 32.
Thank you for that. I thought I saw it. See some check marks, that helps. Well, how do we want to lead off here? I guess the question becomes.
I have a question.
You want to say something first?
Yeah, I'm trying to decide who should be having this discussion since we're transitioning, or maybe we should all be participating in this conversation.
You're more than welcome to be part of the discussion. We're all
Okay.
here today, and I think it would make sense to certainly have you and Greg chime in whatever you think is appropriate.
Can I start out?
Yeah, I was just going to say, let's talk a little bit about the center of government and then get into the Red House, I guess. I don't know where. Yeah, go ahead, Dan. Why don't you start? Let's kind of move into it.
I think
it's a big
Deb,
topic, and we need to break it down and see if we can't do parts of it.
and I think Deb and Greg have been following along, but just to, I think, to recap in my head and for all of us, I think where we were at was looking at not making a decision on the Red House for a couple of months, just putting that off. We got a lot of information, and we were going to go back and look at the center of government issues so that we could then maybe make a more informed decision of what to do. But because we weren't getting anywhere, we weren't able, I don't think we were able to make a decision. So we were going to look at what decisions we needed to make so that we could come back to that to decide what to do with that house.
I sort of thought we were going to talk about the Red House again this month, or start talking about it. Randy?
Yeah, Amanda brought this up at the last meeting, and I think it's kind of like a chess game. You know, what move do you make first, all right? When I look at it, and I think that this is the number 3 on the checklist that Lisa put together as to what departments or operations will need space soon, at some point. And there are other departments that may be impacted by, decisions we make in the city of Ithaca with land and whatnot as to where they're going to go. So when I think about that, I think about, okay, well, are we going to use the lot where the Baker building is in the Red House? Are we going to use that for any of those things? So is that going to be a project that, do we need to keep that land? Do we want to build something there? What can we build there? And will that solve our problems for the next 5 years, 10 years? Or we just abandon that and we move ahead with the center of government? So for me, that lot is important. To me, it's the first step to determine what we're going to do. I think it is a useful lot myself. I think that we could put some operations there. I think it'd be a good spot for IT and for some other departments over there. We have to move them at some point, and they're one of the first ones we need to move, I think. And it's not far from, and then, of course, as Lee brought up, we have these other buildings over here, which I think it's really important we do a walkthrough of those fairly soon. I think KeyBank is building a building somewhere, aren't they? I think so. It sounds like they're looking to vacate that building. And that lease is up, I think, this year. Whether they extend or not, I don't know. So that's just my thoughts.
Deborah?
Yeah, so I guess, Randy, I have a different perspective on this simply because I sat through, God knows how many executive sessions we had when we were deciding whether or not to buy not only the Tioga Street property, but the property on this corner. As I recall, one of the primary impetuses for purchasing the Tioga Street property was our parking needs. And when we had that property and before we bought the corner property, we did a number of studies on how feasible it was to build a center of government on Tioga Street that was of adequate size to meet the needs of our staff. And it was still going to be like sardines because there just wasn't a lot of space. There was a lot of agitation from the city and people who live along Sears Street that we dedicate the Sears Street frontage lots to housing, which ultimately we did. So what we've got left on Tioga Street, from my perspective, is a parking lot and a red house. Now, without opining on whether it's worth sinking $1,170,000 into that red house to make it habitable and usable, I don't think, given the plans that we saw, that we can build the center of government we need on Tioga Street. That's why.
I agree 100% with that.
Okay, that's why we bought the properties over here. I think at the end of the day, we're going to be forced to use the corner properties to build a center of government and expand a cohesive package of buildings, a campus, because a key piece of this too has always been the idea that we were going to use geothermal. That was part of our long-term energy strategy. And given what we learned about the cost of electricity the other night, I think the sooner we can get there, the better. So, I mean, I guess, to me, we're not planning, we're not going to end up building anything on that Tioga Street lot. I do think it's useful to keep it for parking. I do, because as we expand this campus area and start moving staff in from some of the satellite sites that we're paying rent on, that's going to be more people parking here. But, so I think that at the end of the day, what we're going to have to decide is, do we leave that red house up and running, whether we're the ones that occupy it temporarily or not? Or do we deconstruct it to expand the parking? And I appreciate it's an historic building. I think if we could find someone to buy it eventually, I'd be okay with selling it. My concern is, in order to renovate it so that we can use it for our staff, we're going to have to spend over $1 million, and we're never going to get that money back.
That too.
Okay. So that's kind of where my thinking is.
I don't agree with just parking, though.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that everyone has said.
That's the problem, everybody.
I know, like, that is the problem, and I think that whether we sell the Red House property to someone who wants to restore it to its glory, which would be great, but we can't.
No.
We can't. I mean, the 1.7 or 1.1, whatever it is like just to get it basically working.
Does that include the IT upgrades that we would need? Oh, my God.
No, it doesn't. It's the most basic stuff. The problem is if we sell that, then that lot is pretty much unusable other than for parking. So because the shape of the lot is not really conducive to building something new. So I think that's what the question comes down to, is do people want to have an awkwardly shaped property that we can really only use for parking, or we could build a park and plant trees there. I would be into that. But I think what you're saying, Deb, makes sense, that unless we could build a smaller building there to, house 2 departments or something, and then build the center of government. But that, we don't have that much money either. So anyway, I still think that we need to make a decision on the Red House and move forward. So.
Ann.
Thanks. So with at our presentation the other night at the legislature meeting, and from Terry Carroll from our planning department talking about our energy needs, and my colleague, Mr. Mezzi, brought that up. Is there anything we can do, correct me if I'm paraphrasing incorrectly, to speed things up as far as, I think you were talking about having more stable production or more self-sufficient energy production. And so this is one of the biggest things that we could do to try and speed this process up. So just encourage my colleagues who then will be on this to try and speed this up to get the downtown campus. And it's not for sure that we can hook up geothermal to all our downtown buildings, but that was one of the huge advantages that it's possible. Again, it's not guaranteed that we might be able to hook up with geothermal. And I know it's been a while, but just to give a comparison of a heat pump might be, an air source heat pump might be 50% more energy efficient. I have geothermal, and it's 450% more energy efficient. So the efficiencies that you go, if you can do geothermal, and we have it at the airport and the highway department, are just astronomical. So to be waiting on this, plus the rents that we're paying, yes, it's going to be a big ticket thing, but for a lot of reasons, and we already bought those properties. So, and as Deborah and Amanda said, we've spent a lot of time on this. I know there's newer folks that, to get up to speed, but I really think that's the way that we should head and figure out how to do that quickly.
I agree with everybody, of course. And this is something that has interested me for over 15 years. I was glad we bought the Tioga Street property with the Dettel building and the Red House because of the near location to our campus. I think it makes a lot of sense. I was always quizzical about the ideas of building a center of government building there around the Red House and trying to keep the Red House and still put a modern office building on three sides of it. And that was part of the discussions that we had before the properties at the corner of Tioga and Buffalo Street became available. I don't know what we're going to do with that property in the future. I wasn't thrilled about selling off the Sears Street frontage, but I don't think we should not continue to keep the rest of the property. And I don't see a use of the red building for us in the future. As Deborah has said, you know, the amount of money that's going to cost us, and whatever is done, whatever government does, it costs more because we have more requirements. The wage requirements when you hire contractors, the codes, yes, all those things, you know, whether you have to put sprinklers in. We ran into that when we did the Tompkins County Center of History and Culture. Those buildings, even though they had been used many years by the trust company, required quite a significant investment in order to bring them up to standards which were acceptable for municipal use. And we did that, and I'm glad we did. That has been a nice project. I'm not, in my mind, ready to build a center of government building right away. I was back in the around 2008, 2007, when I was hoping we'd hang on to the old library building and possibly build a center of government building there, but the majority of the legislature at that time wanted to sell the old library, and that's what happened. And now we've got a new apartment structure being constructed there. It's not the worst thing in the world to lease some space. We do that now. There are different reasons for doing that. Some of the spaces we lease are because of location or parking or other things. You think of DMV. You think of the Human Rights Office, other things like that have other reasons associated with them. So temporarily, I don't see a problem continuing spaces like that on a lease basis. Yes, it would be nice to have everybody in the same building sometimes, but even that can be a problem. For example, do you want the DA and the
Assigned counsel.
Assigned counsel, I couldn't, thank you, Deborah, I couldn't come up with that. The assigned counsel programs in the same building, there's some issues we've encountered with that over the years. Do we really need to build a 4 or 6 story building? Can we do something shorter and continue to use, which I think are perfectly good buildings like the old jail? You know, that might need some restructuring, but it certainly is a solid building. So I'm with you, Ann, and I'm sorry, I'm with you, Amanda, I should say, about time to make a decision about the Red House. We talked last time about the seeker, and our county administrator, and maybe you want to chime in on this, Lisa, but properly reminded us that we have to redo a seeker if we're going to do something different with the Red House, including if we were to sell or deconstruct it. And so I think that's underway because we sort of wanted that to happen. And at some point, we would need to look at a resolution of what we want to do for the for the Red House. I did ask that, simply for talking at this point, that a resolution be worked up, similar to the one that was done for the dental building, which would authorize going forward with deconstruction. And I don't know whether that has happened yet, or Lisa, you want to speak to this, or what would you like to do?
Sure. I drafted the resolution as requested for deconstruction for consideration. However, the committee and the legislature wouldn't be able to take action on it until such time as the seeker is completed. So Katie and the planning department are working on the seeker now. And then when that's completed, that can be considered simultaneously. The action can be taken on the resolution as proposed.
And that's simply, I asked for that resolution so we'd have something on paper to look at if we want to move forward with that. Greg, then Randy.
Chime in first about the timeline for completion of the seeker.
Donna, isn't she?
Yes.
Katie, did you hear that question?
Just the timeline for the seeker?
Yes.
Yeah. We've already reached out to our partners at Historic Ithaca and the City of Ithaca to get some background information on the Red House, and we're actively working on the seeker. One point of clarification that we will need to know to be able to do the seeker is the intended best guess of the use of that property after the Red House would be potentially taken down. And so right now our thinking, and please correct me if this is incorrect, but would be either a 100% surface parking lot, or it would be a 3 to 4 story center of government building with some associated parking similar to what's included in the current seeker designation. Is that pretty much correct?
Or, as you've heard this morning, perhaps a smaller building.
Yeah, and I'm just talking about kind of bookending between a full surface parking lot and a larger building, and then anything that would fall between those would be covered by the seeker that we would prepare for you for next month.
Okay. So you're looking to have the seeker for next month then?
If that's the direction of the committee, we're happy to, we could certainly pull that together by then.
That'd be great. Ann?
Yeah, I'm just looking at, it has to do with the seeker, because you're, what Katie's talking about, you have to state there what's the anticipated or best use. So I'm wondering, I thought maybe we had this sometime this year, but I'm just looking at number 3 on our packet page 33 of determine if downtown buildings meet our current and future space needs. Would it help if we had a straw poll, if we haven't already, to say, because I would certainly say myself that they don't. And if they don't, then can we say, if we're going to, this is why I was okay about saying, let's pause on the red building for a month or two. We got lots of information. If we are deciding, yes, we're going to build a new center of government, then that informs what we would be putting on the seeker and what we would want to do with the Red House.
Okay, we got a lot of hands. Greg was next, then I think Amanda, Lee, and then Randy.
Thanks, Mike. Sorry, I'm just trying to put my thoughts together because there's a lot going on here. One, I think we need to look, and I think Lee has expressed this before, at the really long term, right? The 40, 50-year outlook of the county. Where does the Red House fit into that? Where does parking fit into that? I don't love the idea of taking a big city's plot and putting parking, but the reality is we have people that need to get to work, and we have services that need to be provided by those people to the greater community. So we need to do that. I also think if we're going to put surface parking on a lot in a residential-ish area, sort of a mixed transition area, we need to be really good neighbors, and it needs to be really nice parking, right? It needs to look better.
It needs to be landscaped with trees, et cetera.
Yeah, better than any parking, surface parking lot that exists, right? So we need to be good neighbors. So because I don't want people in that area of the community to think that we're just gonna, stone and oil and haphazardly paint some lines and, there's some parking for the time being, because I think we need to be good stewards, because really nobody else, if they went to the city and said we wanted to put surface parking on these lots, would be able to do that. And so we do have that privilege, but I also think we have the responsibility to do it in a way that complements the character of the community. As it relates to the Red House, I don't agree with the idea of parceling it off and selling it. I think it creates a sort of a odd-shaped lot, and I think as we look at the 40, 50-year plan, we don't know what else we'll need. We don't know if that parking someday may need to be a child care facility for county employees, or a health clinic of some sort, or a 1-2-story use, right? I'm not a big fan of a 3-4-story, much larger structure in that area because of residential feel and fit with the community, but something needs to be, that space, we need to sort of reserve the right for future use. Our current use may be parking, but future use may be something with greater community benefit. I do think if we do deconstruct it, we need to honor the historic nature of that building and painstakingly go through and make sure that every historic element is salvaged and saved and repurposed and put to good use to continue to enrich the vibrant historic restoration community that we have within our county. But I don't think that Red House is up for that restoration. And based on future county needs, I think we need to stop putting a Band-Aid, and I disagree with my colleague Ann a little bit here on putting it off for a few months, because if we're just delaying the inevitable, I think we have a responsibility to action and not spending more taxpayer dollars to limp it along for a longer period of time. As it relates to the center of government, we're probably at some point going to have a vacant building or two on that corner as Key Bank moves down to Meadow Street, as things, change there. And we've sort of, in previous legislatures, gone in that direction. And I think we need to honor that a little bit. I think it's fine to tweak and make amendments to that direction based on current situation. But a center of government, to even get out of the ground, is how many years away, right? How many months away? So if we don't start today, it's not going to be within our term. It's not going to, it's going to be in the middle of the next legislature term. I mean, it's years, and it takes time, and we can't keep kicking the can. We've got to start kicking something around that has some real merit and some real meat. Other than the can, right? Ideas, or here's what a blueprint looks like, here's what cost estimations are, here's the departments that need to live here, and here's the departments that need to live somewhere else. Here's how we address IT. I mean, these are the strategic planning things that we have to do in this committee, and I think regardless of people's personal opinions, we have a responsibility as a committee to flesh this out. If it's an opinion we disagree with or agree with, we really need to sort of start to churn things up so we can have some actionable items and not just wait for the right time to start talking about it for 3 years to go by before we can, it's just such a long process.
Let's see if we can get some more comments here.
Yeah.
Amanda.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with a lot of what Greg said. And to Katie's question about what would the seeker include, I think what you said is yes. Anywhere from a parking lot to a couple-story building. And I would also just bring up the fact that nobody wants to talk about is that we're also looking at a jail situation, and that's going to be a huge amount of money. And I don't, that's the even bigger picture of, can we afford to do both? And if we can't, then maybe building a smaller functional building to house a couple of departments in a smaller lot makes sense. But I very much agree with Greg that, we should be thinking about the long term for that property and what it could be used for many years from now. That's it. I think there was something else, but.
I think Greg and Amanda have gone in the direction there where you think I am probably too. I got a couple suggestions. I'm kind of intrigued a little bit with Ann's discussion on the geothermal, and I know that's probably pretty much conceptual at this point as to what it would take to do something either on that site or in a broader application to numerous buildings. So you're looking at some powering facility for something that may be expansive. The other part is, Lisa, I do appreciate the steps you've put in here, and I would make a suggestion to keep moving along, that we do something in the areas of number 3 and 4 and determine if current downtown buildings, you name the courthouse, the old jail, Tompkins Building, Annex C, Human Services, meet current and future needs. And I'm not sure what current and future really translates into. Are we talking 1 to 2 years or 1 to 5 years or 1 to 10? Don't know. But I would suggest we add in there the other properties that we've acquired, including the Tioga Street ones. Is there something there that would accommodate current to future needs as an interim step? And that you add somewheres in here something about looking at the geothermal suggestions, and where it says achieve the county's space goals in number 4 in the first sentence, perhaps we should be not just looking at space goals, but sustainability and energy, which incorporates the idea of geothermal and how you would power something like this. But, I'm back to just looking at this broader picture, and I'm on the same page with Amanda. I'm scared to death of trying to take a step with this and then get hit with a public safety building project. I just think there's a broader scope. And the other thing is, there's some things that may very well transpire in the next year that will change the needs. They may expand what we need to build for a center of government as you look at broader space needs in the county.
Randy.
I think we've reached a consensus. I think that nobody wants to sell the land over there where the Baker Building is and where the Red House is. So I think that's one decision that was made. I think we have a consensus as well that we don't want to keep the Red House. So one way or another, we've got to do something with it. We're not going to, I think that's what I'm hearing, that we've got to do something with that Red House. And we don't want to sell it for somebody to rehab it because we want the land, right? That's what I'm hearing from everybody. So I think that's 2 good decisions that were just made that we could pass on to the legislature. I think that it comes down to the Red House. What do you do, right? So do we bid it out to deconstruct it? Or as with Historic Ithaca mentioned, things can't be moved. It's a challenge to move it, but if you donate the building, maybe it can be moved. I don't know, maybe that's an option for somebody. It's not something I would take on, but it happens. I mean, and maybe even Ithaca Neighborhood Housing would choose that to move it to the lots that we sold to them. I don't know. That nothing's happened there. So I think that if we're gonna decide to deconstruct that house, we should spend a few months at least trying to see if somebody wants it and to move it. You never know, right? It's crazy things. So I think those are 2 good things. I think Lee's point too, that we may have some other departments that may need to be moved at some point, and so our needs are going to increase based on what we're thinking now. So I think I agree with what you said, Lee.
The way we make decisions and pass them on to the legislature is not so much consensus, but by taking an action on a resolution.
I understand.
And so I think that even though I like what I'm hearing you say, Randy, I think the way we have to proceed, we have to wait for the seeker. We have to review the seeker. And then we would have to move forward to the legislature a resolution. So I think that's what we're going to try to do next time, if that makes sense with folks.
Yeah.
Amanda?
Yeah, I think that totally makes sense, but I think Randy's point is that we have talked about this a lot, and it sounds like this group has come to some sort of agreement that what the resolution would say is that we would be deconstructing the red house and keeping the property. So, I mean, hooray. We've been talking about it for a long time. And then, you know.
That's what we do best at Tompkins County,
I know,
talk.
we talk. Well, to that point, there are, how many people here? 7 of us here, 7 legislators here. We have 7, soon to be 8 more, and they're all going to have their opinions and thoughts. And I guess I would suggest sending out as much information as possible before this gets to the legislature, so folks have time to ask questions, to process their own feelings, so we don't have a 3-hour discussion at the legislature.
We'll have that anyway.
Well, I know, but I can hope.
I could send out an email to legislators and say, you know,
This is what we're
discussion
thinking.
what we've had here.
Yeah, I think that would be great, just so people know the direction we're going ahead of time and
I can do that.
Yeah.
Lee?
Question for Katie. With Randy's suggestion that there could be a potential for somebody that may want to move that building, would you incorporate that idea as an alternative or as a part of a seeker document?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, actually, Lee. I think we would need to know whether that is somewhat of a real possibility, though, before we could include that as a mitigating factor in seeker. So I don't know, with the timeline that you guys just outlined, I don't think we would have time to include that as a serious mitigation factor. But if you wanted to delay it, we could explore that, but that would be my take on it.
Megan, I see your face. Did you want to speak? You don't have to.
I was just going to note that I would confirm this with the city preservation staff, but I do believe if the building is moved, it would most likely make the historic preservation tax credits inaccessible to kind of the taker of the property, since the significance is tied to the district and it's, you know, kind of physically tied to its actual location and context. So I can confirm that, but I think that might be a potential, you know, issue for moving the building and accessing that kind of, you know, financial benefit to help make rehabilitation possible.
Well, at least it could be mentioned that was a part of the discussion. May not be the mitigating action based on the last couple of comments here.
Harrell, did you want to make any comments?
No, I think it's been good discussion. I was looking at the studies that we've done, and the last kind of feasibility study that we did of the 400 block had 10 scenarios.
Yes.
6 of those scenarios had the county selling off property along the Sears Street, at least all of the property along Sears Street, and then looking at really the maximum size of a structure that we could do for a center of government at the time was probably 32,000, and parking spaces were minimal at around 25 spaces. One option had us at 4 stories, and really that's much higher than we would want to do in that area. And so, you know, really at the time the legislature and the committee decided to really look at the 300 block, and that's why that block was purchased, really to do the center of government there. the options that we were looking at on the 400 block did incorporate the Red House. My feeling was that it was going to cost the county more to do that, to incorporate the Red House into any center of government structure, because first of all, the alignment of the floors would be different. As you know, the Red House is higher up off the ground than we would for a new building. You would come right at grade. So we had to make several modifications to attach to the Red House. In any case, having done the feasibility, it just didn't seem feasible to do a center of government in that location. And that's why we moved to looking at the 300 block. What's changed since 2019 to last year was that when we did the space update that we presented to the committee, F&I committee last July of 2022, there were additional departments added that were not part of the 2019 study, and that was really the Workforce Development Bureau, Workforce New York, that's at Center Ithaca, and Office for the Aging, that's at the Human Services Annex. And so that added about 9,200 gross square feet to the project. And as you recall, when we presented that update, really the next step was for the committee to start making decisions if we were to move forward with the center of government building, which departments to include. But currently, with all of the departments that were included in the update in 2022, the gross square footage of the building was about 64,000 square feet. So it's a much larger structure than had been looked at for the 400 block property. As I said at the beginning of my report, currently the Red House is fine. It's going to make it through the winter. We will continue to do minimal maintenance and, make sure it doesn't deteriorate. So at least if the committee and the legislature decide to sell it, that at least it's still in the same condition as you've seen it in the last few months.
Thank you, Rel. Let me just make a couple of comments before we move on here. One is that when I said we like to talk, and I think that that's a good thing, and I've always appreciated that about Tompkins County. We really talk about decisions, and we probably talk to ad infinitum sometimes, but I do think we make better decisions because we do that. We aren't coming back and saying, geez, why didn't we think of that? Why did we do that instead of that? Well, when you talk it out, you come to these various issues and get to resolve them one way or the other. Doesn't mean everybody has to agree, but at least they get to hear and they get to voice what they believe. The other thing I wanted to say is that looking at our downtown campus, looking at the main courthouse that was built in the 1930s and the jail, the old jail at that time, or was the jail at that time, it's the old jail now. Looking at the Daniel Tompkins building, which was sold off and then reacquired by the county, believe it or not. Looking at the use of some of the old Ithaca College buildings, which the remnant is, for us, is Building C. I think those were good decisions that were made years ago, consolidating into a campus area. And I think 50 years down the line, people will look back at us and say, thank you for making a decision. Thank you for keeping this campus as the center of the county government, whether it's a new giant building or whether it's assorted buildings, whether it's geothermal, which I think be a great idea, although that means more electric use when you go to geothermal. It just cuts off your natural gas.
Which we have to transition away from in any event under the CLCPA.
But I'm not arguing with that. I'm just saying that that everything's a trade-off. So I think when they look back, they'll be glad we made these decisions, whatever we end up here. And if we can hold together the downtown campus, I think they'll be appreciative of that. Lee.
Just a couple of footnotes. I think when you're talking $30 to $40 million potential cost, a little extra discussion probably isn't a bad thing. And one of our former legislators used to talk about when they took on the building of the courthouse in, I think, what, 1932, thereabout.
Yep.
As they were coming back from the Depression or kind of in the middle of it. The lore has it that the entire Board of Supervisors were thrown out the next time they ran for election. So yeah, the decision may have been good back then, but it certainly wasn't appreciated.
I think that's lore, but I don't think it's actually true.
Well, we got to do a little research, Mike.
All right, let's, Ann, I think you,
I can wait for
all right, Deborah, then Ann, and then let's move on.
Yeah, well, I'm pleased that we seem to have reached a point where we're ready to send a resolution to the full legislature and the Red House. I wasn't particularly wedded to selling it or deconstructing it, but I'm perfectly happy to go along with everybody else. But my main concern is that we start planning for a center of government on this corner. I know that you don't want to build it now, Mike. I don't think anybody wants to build it now. Now's probably the worst time in our lifetimes to build anything. But I think that we have to start planning for building it. I cannot justify in my own mind buying this property, taking it off the tax rolls, and then sitting on it because we can't decide whether we should be building something. That makes no sense. That, and I also, with all due respect to my colleagues, can't understand talking about building something here and then building something over there that's smaller, because even a small building, I mean, you've got to break ground and build a foundation, and that's much more expensive to build a second small building than to plan this building to be in a size and configuration that meets your current needs. I agree with Greg and Lee that we ought to be looking for the long term. It makes sense then to have an attractive parking lot with the idea that maybe at some point in the future we'll have to build something else on that site. But right now, I think a piece that we're forgetting is the importance of parking, because we do not have a robust public transit system here. We just don't. And many of our employees live in the outlying areas of our county and even over county lines, either because they prefer to live there or because they can't afford to live in the city and walk to work. So one thing I don't want us to forget in this discussion is the importance of providing those employees with parking. And then finally, I will say that, yes, there's a movement afoot to build or add on to our public safety building. To me, that is far down on my list of priorities when I think about the need for the county to have adequate facilities to provide services to its residents and our obligation to our employees to give them enough space and a decent place to live while they're doing their jobs. So that's all I got to say.
Ann?
Thanks for giving me another opportunity to talk on this. And as just a couple of thoughts as turning this over, this committee over to a couple of new folks who will be in here. So just wanted to pass on a couple things. Following up on what Deborah said as far as like public safety building, as far as our capital plan, a new center of government is in our capital plan. Public safety is not. So even if we were to think about it, my thinking, it should take a back seat to that. Just for that reason, I don't see any reason to move that up on that. And I concur of let's start planning now. It's going to take several years. This part of the reason this started, if not the main reason, remembering back umpteen years ago, was, well, I guess I haven't been here umpteen years, but it feels like it, talking about this, was the courthouse. We have been asked to vacate the clerk's entire department, plus the DA's entire department needs to come out of the courthouse, so that we have been asked by New York State courts to get out of there, and they have been patient. And part of the discussion initially, and I'm sure they're still feeling the same way, is the only reason they're not kicking us out is because we are supposedly making plans to house those departments. So we need to get on that, and we've kind of had kind of a lull on that. So we need to figure out where they're going to go. You walk through various departments around the county, for instance, just an example of administration and HR next door. They are the cramming of more and more people that in there is just ridiculous. And I think we need to give our staff to the hope that they are not going to have to endure that forever. And so I think that's one of the things that we owe the staff too. And let me see what else here. IT was mentioned. IT, we had IT here a couple of years back, but I'm sure it still is the same thing. They can't move twice. It's just pretty much practically impossible. So just when you think about that, IT can't move twice. They need to move once. The center of government building is built. They then move over into that. For the parking lot, I just want to pass on a couple of my thoughts. If we, which I had to park at over today because the legislature, this parking lot was full, so I parked over on Tioga Street. When thinking about that, please think about electric charging stations for electric vehicles, and that's another thing that the county can do to help facilitate our employees to more quickly transition over into electric vehicles. A lot of people don't have the ability to charge if they're renting or whatever. You don't have the ability to charge at home. So, and then a gate on the parking lot. It needs to have an electric gate, just like if you walk over to the town of Ithaca parking lot, they have a gate. The gate's open in the evening so people can use it, you know, when our hours are done, but please put a gate there with a pass. And I would also suggest one on maybe our main parking lot. I don't know if the little one here, but at least the main parking lot between the courthouse and the old jail. That would solve a lot of issues because we've had, over the years, many, many discussions on people coming in the community and parking here, and then staff time to go and police the parking lots because people in the community know they can park here. That's all I have for now, but maybe I'll come back and comment on the committee.
You're always welcome, Ann. You've been, and I do want to say that with the new iterations of the committee that have been designated by our legislature chair, we've changed 2 members. We're going to lose Amanda. We're going to lose Ann, and they've been terrific members of this committee. And we're certainly happy to have Deborah and Greg coming on starting next month. But thank you for the 2 of you for your contributions to this committee. It's been exemplary. Thank you so much.
Mike?
Yes.
Yeah, I had my hand up, but you probably can't see it.
I can see it now that I'm looking at you, but I didn't see it before. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. Ann mentioned some things that I had planned to bring up. Lisa at the last committee meeting in December indicated that our department is currently working with several departments to address space needs, immediate space needs. There are actually 6 departments, all of which have been and are considered as part of the Center of Government project, which is ITS, administration, finance, HR, planning, sustainability, and assessment. So we're doing the best we can to accommodate those space needs within their current space, which is challenging, but we think we can come up with some layouts that will accommodate that. Will not meet the space requirements that we have guidelines in our policy, but at least will allow the creation of additional space for staff that are being hired. One thing that I wanted to bring up You may recall, but I'm not sure if all the other legislatures recall this, but back in 2018, we did a feasibility study presentation for making serious renovations to the old jail building to address mostly space needs, and it was around $2.5 million in cost. And we were moving forward. We did a presentation. The next step would have been to start schematic design, and it was put on hold because at that time we purchased the 400 block of Tioga Street. So that the plan was those space needs would be addressed in that new building. Now, if we're looking at delaying moving forward of any of those, I had mentioned to Lisa last month that we may want to look at moving forward with those major renovations at the old jail to address space needs. So I just wanted to bring that to the committee's attention. And, if the committee wants in the future, I could kind of do a refresh of what we presented back in 2018, about 4 years ago.
I think
I just wanted to bring to your attention the space needs that currently exist, that our department is making improvements to space to try to accommodate those space needs. So there are space needs that in some of these departments, those additional staff were not even part of the most recent update of July of 2022. These are positions that were created most recently, in this last budget.
Yeah, I think to have an update on that would be very useful in the future.
Yeah, and then the other thing, what Ann mentioned about the courts, I did a space study with the court to address courts' space needs almost 12 years ago. 9 years ago, we moved forward with moving Office for the Aging out of the main courthouse as well as the legislature into the old courthouse and the Human Services Annex. And as Ann indicated, the court has the expectation that the county ultimately will move out the remaining departments, the district attorney and the county clerk. They have not put pressure lately because, as I indicated the last year, is funding is what the issue is for them, is getting the funding to move forward with those improvements. But there is the expectation from them that the county will ultimately vacate the main courthouse. But the last time that we did that was 9 years ago. It's hard to believe that it's been 9 years, but since we moved legislature and Office for the Aging out of the main courthouse. I just wanted to bring that to the committee's attention.
Okay, we got only a few more minutes left. I've got you, Randy, just a second. Oh, and Lisa, but I just wanted to say, Fernando, you're on the screen, and so is Terry. Did you want to talk to us this morning?
I'm all set. No, thank you.
Thank you. Fernando, did you want to talk to us this morning?
I'm all set also. I was here to offer backup if something came up or if there was any question.
We're glad to have you here. Okay, let's go to Lisa next.
Thank you. I just wanted to summarize to ensure that we and our staff are doing what we can in the interim to bring you the information you need to make decisions at the upcoming meeting. So I know at the next meeting, the planning department will be bringing forth, the seeker will be bringing forth the resolution for consideration, possible action on the Red House. Aurel talked about bringing forth some of the information about the older information about renovations at the old jail. I heard it mentioned as a possibilities for interim steps of would it be possible or feasible to house any departments in the 300 block until we renovate? Aurel and I can discuss this further, but my understanding is that there will be a cost to renovate those buildings to bring them up to code to house county staff, so we can bring forth some more information on those costs for the committee's information, if that would be helpful. But I'm trying to just make sure we're touching the points that are
Could I chime in?
useful.
I'm sorry, I don't see myself wasting time to see if we could house people over there when they'd have to then go move somewhere else during construction. So to me, I think that's a waste of time.
Okay.
I'm not certain I agree with that, but I do want to say that we thought, or we've had at least one request that we have a tour of those buildings.
A tour of those buildings,
And I
thank
think
you.
if that could somehow be scheduled, even if they were separately scheduled, we could, that would be useful to the committee. Randy?
Yeah, I just had a question for Ariel. Ariel, if we, let's say that the legislature in April said, okay, we're gonna build a 50,000 square foot building, center of government, how long would that take?
That would,
People could move in.
Yeah, I would say 18 to 24 months. I mean, that's from you telling me to move forward because I'd have to prepare RFQ to send out, get proposals, and then hire a consulting firm to do that. What's more challenging when you have a building for multiple departments is it takes more time, more coordination, talking to each various department. So I would say 18 to 24 months. I think it'd probably be somewhere in between 18 to 24, probably 20 months to really get to the point of moving from then to construction. So, and then with construction, that's about 2 years. So you're looking at about 4.5 years, from the time that you approve it to the time that we would be able to move a department into the space.
Thank you.
Probably longer.
Yes, hopefully, optimistic.
Need to move, people.
All right, anything else we need to talk about this morning? We've done good business today, and I appreciate all your efforts, and we will be meeting again next month and have some more information to make decisions about. Oh, sorry. Just holler at me, Taylor. Someone want to take the minutes?
We also have advisory board appointments.
Oh, we have an advisory board appointment? Okay, keep us on track here. All right, let's do Heather McDaniel to the Air Services Board reappointment. Someone want to move that? Randy, seconded by Ann. Go ahead.
There's also a second one, right? I think there's two.
Correct, there are two.
Well, let's do one at a time.
Oh, okay.
One at a time. Can we move both?
Well,
Can we?
I don't want to argue about it, sir. If you want to move both, that's all right with me. The other one is Ken Hodges to the Air Services Board. All right, who moved it to begin with?
It was Randy.
Randy, is it all right to do two? All right. Is there a second? Seconded by Ann. Discussion about either of the advisory board appointments. Those in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Now let's go back to the minutes.
I'll move the minutes.
Ann's moved the minutes. Is there a second? Seconded by Amanda. Are there any changes or corrections? Ready to vote? Those in favor? Those opposed? That's unanimous. All right, what else did we miss?
That's good.
All right, thank you, Taylor, for keeping us on track. Yeah, we're going to have to, we'll talk about, with the new committee, we'll have to set its own goals. How's that?
Thanks, Mike.
We're adjourned.
I'm sorry about that, Mick. Highway. Woo, we all looked at the agenda.
That's the biggest mistake we ever make. No, we don't have to worry much about
I
it.
think we all looked at this one. So,
Thank you, Lisa.
Busy, busy. Off to a good start.
About the sunshine, right?
We have two deputies. Although Norma's got two jobs, it sounds.
stop recording.
for a little while, but congratulations on getting here.